Today I'm going to do something which will horrify millions of people. Watch. Are you a cola corporate lawyer who's going to sue me? Well, there is method behind my madness, because this is kind of what's happening with this van. It's the new Volkswagen Transporter. So to see what I'm talking about and to hear if it's any good, then please keep watching, and also like and subscribe, and let me know if you prefer Coke or Pepsi. Why is there all this fuss? Well, for 75 years, the Volkswagen Transporter has had a fanatical following. Owners are considered to be a cut above the other vans on the road, and once it's done its duty with a plumber or plaster, it inevitably goes on to have another life as a camper van. For most of those years, the Transporter's arch rival has been the Transit. But most of those VW owners wouldn't even consider a Ford. But now the unthinkable has happened. This new 7th generation Transporter is a Transit in disguise. That's like finding a Whopper in your Big Mac box, or your iPhone suddenly running Android. It's all part of a big corporate deal which has seen Volkswagen give up some of its bits for Ford to use in the Explorer and the Capri, and meanwhile Ford has had to give up its Transit for Volkswagen to use in the Transporter. What it does mean for us is that there's lots of costs saved, so we get a better van or a better car for our money. Now, it's controversial. Lots of Volkswagen fans have been out and bought all the last of the old Transporters because they think it's not going to be very good and they don't really want a Transit. But what it does mean is that everybody's sharing things. You get a much better car, or a much better van in this case. Sharing costs is good. It means you get more for your money. And we already think that the Transit Custom is probably the best in the class. So there's a possibility that this could be better. Even more so when looking at the prices. Now, you probably already know that van prices are an absolute nightmare to work out. There's VAT, on the road costs, and then a plug-in van grant to subtract if you've got an electric van. But I reckon the VW is slightly cheaper than the Ford, and it's predicted to have better residual values too, so it should be cheaper on the monthly cost too. Oh, and the warranty? The Volkswagen 5 Plus Promise comprises of 5 services, 2 MOTs, a 5-year warranty, and 5 years roadside assistance too. Ford? 3 years and no free services. VW also says it has its own production line in the Ford factory, along with extra quality checks. They really want to make sure those traditional VW customers are reassured. Of course, it costs more than the diesel to go electric, about £5,300 more after you've taken the grant off. But as a bonus, the EV includes heated seats, upgraded aircon, and a tyre mobility kit. And oddly, all-season tyres as well. There are 2 lengths, and there will be an 8 or 9-seater version for people who have strong religious beliefs, shall we say. Inside, you can tell this has been designed by somebody who drives a van every day. So there's storage everywhere. You could put an invoice down in here and lose it for half an hour. So you've got this massive space here, which Nicola says will hold 20 cheeseburgers in a Transit. There's also like power points here for your sat-nav or your phone. Also cup holders everywhere. If you want to keep your can of cola, I've got one stored there. There's another one there, another one for your passengers here. 2 glove boxes, more power points. Also here in the middle seat, this can become a nice desk for you, or this lifts up and there's a space under here for your cables, and you can hide your laptop or maybe even some of your power tools out of sight there. Nice wipe clean floor too. Now, this is from a Volkswagen clearly, and these screens are also just Volkswagen. This screen here I think is different to the Ford as well. I think this has got fewer buttons down the bottom that are permanently there, but it seems to work perfectly well. It's not like some of the other Volkswagen ID3s that we've had a problem with in the past. The payload is between 1,013 and 1,088 kilograms, depending on the spec. That's a lot more than the Buzz's 592 kilograms, but a bit less than the best diesel. One of the things I really love are these power sockets. So there's 2 of them here, and they allow you to use the van's battery to power up to 400 watts times 2 on 220 volt sockets. So you can charge your power tools maybe, or you can run a lawnmower, or even perhaps charge another van, but very slowly. Also, look at this. It can tow up to 2.3 tons. In here, there's a secret hatch. It goes into that space under the passenger seat and gives you that extra load length, so you can put your copper pipes or your ladder without having to slap them on the roof. Clever. Oh, and you can put up to 170 kilograms on the roof rack. There are two motors available with either 136 or 218 horsepower. Oddly, the 0 to 62 time is 8.6 seconds regardless of the power output, presumably because that's fast enough, and any faster would make the insurance brokers have kittens. The diesel, 13.4 seconds at best. Most will only manage 16.9. Take that, DERV lovers. I'd best try it out. Now what that does mean is that off the line, this Transporter is really rather quick. I mean, it's not throw you back like you get in a Tesla, but it certainly feels perkier than you would in a diesel, especially when it's unladen. Now, considering that performance, there is perhaps a bit of a lull once you get off the line. It's not super quick, but I guess that's to keep the insurance companies happy. And it certainly never feels inadequate. Now, this is rear drive, like I suppose the old Volkswagen Transporters were, if you like to think of the classics. What that does mean is that there is occasionally a traction issue. So if you're on like a gravel bit of road or a wet junction, or if it's slippery or snowy, you do lack a bit of traction at the back, and it does get a bit wheel spinny sometimes. I think that would be better if there's a load in the back, which of course most people will have. I don't think they've made any chassis changes over the Transit, which is a thoroughly good thing because the Transit is brilliant to drive. Now, being rear drive does also mean that it's quite good fun, really. It's not a sports car, you're not going to throw it around just for fun, but it is quite car-like up here. It's better to drive than many SUVs, I'd say. If you're a current Transporter driver, you might well be worried about the quality. After all, you want a Volkswagen, not a Ford. But I really wouldn't worry about it. I mean, this steering wheel is, I think, the only Volkswagen thing in here, and it's a lovely steering wheel. It's nice and soft, and it's got nice fake leather on it too. But everything else is really solidly built too. There's decent fabric quality, everything's really solid. It feels, well, Volkswagen-y, which is strange since it's a Ford, really. Now, if you're still worried, Volkswagen insists that they have their own production line in the Ford factory and extra quality checks, not both at the factory, but also when it comes into the UK to make sure that it's up to standard. And then there's that 5-year warranty too, whereas the Ford only gets 3. So, are you still worried? Well, I wouldn't be.
This video is brought to you with Anderson EV, the UK's most awarded home charge point brand of 2024, offering over 200 colour and finish options, a market-leading 7-year warranty, and a unique hidden tethered cable.
Visibility is really good for a light commercial vehicle as well. So you've got these huge mirrors with the blind spot part down at the bottom, and also I think the Transit doesn't have the same bonnet, so you can just see a little bit of bonnet on this, which you can't see on a Transit. Then of course there's the big standard rear camera. This version has a little hatch in the bulkhead so I can see through the back, otherwise you can get another camera to see behind you in one of those clever mirrors. If I look at the buttons which are fixed below the screen, I've got these drive modes. Now there's a normal, which is for your everyday use, Eco if you really want to stretch that range, a Sport which makes the throttle response just a little more snappy, a Slippery for when it's snowy or muddy and to help out if you haven't got a load in the back, and then a Tow Haul if you've got a lot of load in the back and you want to get a lot of low down torque. There's also a B mode. Now I access that by pressing the B button on the stalk here. That's interesting because on the Transit it's labelled as L, and nobody's quite sure what the L stands for. I think Nicola in her Transit review suggested it stood for lads. So I'm going to press it now. Oh yeah, it does come down to complete stop. One thing you will have to do without is Ford Pro's clever technology, which allows you to look at how your van's being used and to do lots of other clever things to keep costs down. Now, if you're a one-man band or you've only got a small fleet, you might not need all of that anyway, and I'm sure Volkswagen will come up with something similar, but worth bearing in mind if that's important to you. Depending on the model, the Transporter has either 192 or 201 miles range. That's not too bad, and I think that Volkswagen's done some research and says that's enough for most customers, because if you need any more than 200 miles in everyday use, you should probably be in a diesel. Charging? Well, DC charging is up to 125 kilowatts, which is pretty good, but there's only 11 kilowatts AC. Now that's a bit of a disappointment because a lot of commercial properties have 3-phase charging, which means they can get up to 22 kilowatts. That would be really useful in a commercial situation. It means you could charge up much faster. There's going to be a plug-in hybrid version too. It arrives in 2026.
Niggles? Well, there aren't that many, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of having the gear selector on a stalk here. It means that this one on the left-hand side has to do everything. It can be a bit complicated trying to work out how to put in your back wiper, for example. Also, the screen in front of me is clear enough, but there's an awful lot going on. At the moment, I've got radio stations, there's no phone connected, there's something about the sat-nav, there's something also telling me my tow bar's extended. It's you can't tell instantly what you're looking at. But other than that, it's really nice in here. It's a great van. The new Transporter is a controversial vehicle in a few ways, and some people say it's not a proper Volkswagen, but by sharing with Ford, they've made it a much better van, and that's something we have to applaud. Now, the Volkswagen, they sweeten the deal with lower prices and a better warranty too. But ultimately, which one you choose is going to be a question of the deal you can find, or maybe just a question of taste. Cheers.